After talking about what environmental education is, its definition, the different models, the representations of environment, well, now it's time to dive in to see what we can do about it. How are we going to promote environmental education in our faith community? So here are a few strategies. The easiest is just to project a film and to invite people. It can be during, a weeknight or maybe during the weekend, and you invite people to a film and then a screening and then a discussion after that. You could invite a speaker and organize a talk, call it a conference, or a workshop. Invite knowledgeable people who can share their skills. How about letting people calculate their ecological footprint? Creating an activity where people come and then they get this questionnaire. They can answer a bunch of questions, then make that calculation, and then at the end, they find that it takes so many acres, so many hectares of land just for the way they act, their habits every day. You can organize the tour of a neighborhood or even a walk in nature. So let's explore those in detail. The movies. Now, the movies screenings are an amazing idea because, most of the time where the people are there, it's already organized, so you don't have too much to do. I knew of a church that during the cold months would organize a screening once a month at the church. It was great. There were lots of people. The first time, the room was full, and then after that, again, and then slightly less, and then the numbers just went down and down and down. And then she wondered, what's happening? I thought the environmental theme was interesting. And so she asked a bunch of people, and the most honest ones said, you know what? You're only showing movies that have to do with environmental problems. And now I'm having trouble sleeping at night. And now I'm just so discouraged about the world we're in. So I'd rather do something else. So obviously, only screening movies with environmental problems will be problematic. So what she did the year after, she said, okay, I'm going to alternate. One, it's going to be a movie with an environmental problem, and then another one with the beauty of nature. And then we'll go back to one and go back to the other. And that was like the perfect balance. If you're scared of movies with the environmental problems and you only show movies with the beauty of nature, that'll be a huge problem too, because then it just becomes so romantic. Oh, nature's so beautiful, but then we don't change our habits because we don't really know that there's an environmental crisis. We don't understand it. So it's really this balance between the two, which is the best. Some have done it simply with youth groups. Some have done it much wider, sometimes in collaboration with other churches or other environmental organizations. But this is a fun one. Invite a speaker. I used to be a speaker for the Climate Reality Project. And so these are people who are trained to talk about the environment, mostly climate change. And when I was trained for this, I had to pledge that I was going to give 10 presentations for free, which I did very gladly. So these presentations, some speakers you might invite are really experts in their field, and they're professional speakers, and sometimes they can be quite costly. Some other times you can invite someone who is just a good speaker from an environmental group or from a bigger organization, and that person already has a salary, so you can invite that person and comes and gives a presentation. You don't have to pay that person. It's kind of included in what they do, and it's always been very positive what I've heard of. One thing you do have to do is really spread the news as far as possible. send the invitation to other churches, to diocesan communication, and tell the local media, and sometimes even the city. There's a billboard where you can put the activities that are happening. So it's really good to invite a speaker, but just make sure that lots of people attend. So lots and lots of advertising. Organize a workshop. Okay, the one on the left is an example of a canning workshop. Okay, so this is exactly what our ancestors used to do. If they were going to eat during the winter months, they had to conserve what they had in the summer. So put some of that aside. And when you do some canning, well, you don't need a fridge, you don't need a freezer, so you're not using that energy. So that's really wonderful. And knowing that you canned it also brings lots of value to what you're eating. So I've seen canning workshops, and I've seen recycling artists workshops. Some people are amazing artists, and they can make things that are just nice to look at, or sometimes that are very useful, like these bags here. And rather than seeing so many things go in a landfill, well, to reuse these things and make bags, for example, it makes for a really fun community project. An activity relating to the ecological footprint. Now, this is very useful, and in my opinion, it's the most significant environmental education activity you can organize. I've seen whole communities really convert to environmental values. Obviously, Christian environmental values, but I've seen a huge shift in some of the churches when they organize this. So what do? They get the chance to have a questionnaire and answer some questions, and then do the whole calculation. And at the end, this can be done online, or it could be done on paper. But once you've finished and then you get the answer, well, if everyone consumed like I do, everyone on the planet, how many planet Earths would we need to sustain life for everyone? And what I've seen is people would get 3 or 4 or 5 Earths, and then that was a huge shocker. And then people could identify, oh, well, this number's pretty high, and this number's pretty high, and this number's pretty high. I should work on these. And since they were working on these, well, then they were much more receptive to all of the activities that were organized at the church. And let's say we decided, okay, well, we're going to spend a few thousand for solar panels. Well, then the community was more ready to do that because they understood the scope of the crisis we're in. Doing a tour of the neighborhood is so awesome. Okay, it can be done by someone who will highlight cultural aspects or historical aspects. Those are really interesting. We're discovering our environment, urban environment, but also obviously from a biological point of view, that would be really interesting. So invite a biologist, and that person, from a school close, someone who knows the names of the birds and the trees and can give a bunch of fun facts. That's a really relatively simple and fun activity that can be done in the spring, in the summer, even in the fall during the time of the season of creation. Or maybe invite people to a forest or someplace close, maybe walk on the coast, the river, and just walking together. Here you can see people holding some sheets of paper. That's pictures of birds and other plants, animals to identify while they're going along. This nature walk is really amazing because we're not just talking about nature, but people are living an experience together. And that will have an influence on their values and their attitudes towards nature because they were closer to it rather than being alienated from You don't always have to start from scratch. There are some great campaigns that are organized from different environmental groups. When I say environmental groups, it can be, very local ones or national or even international. And when you look at what they do, um, you know, some churches might be allergic to things that are too political, and the ones I'm showing here are not political at all. Um, so before Christmas, Oxfam was suggesting unwrapped. So you're giving gifts, but it doesn't have to be material gifts. It's you're giving in someone else's name. Um, Development and Peace had done a thing called bottled water free zone. So these were little posters that you could put in different rooms, and then people became aware of the use of plastic bottles. The 350 movement was not political. We wanted to change some policies and we wanted to raise awareness, but it's just learning of this magical number that climatologists consider that 350 parts per million should be the maximum amount of CO2, the concentration we should find in the atmosphere. We've gone beyond 400 now, so we have to bring it down to that number now. So the campaigns are available, and then you can judge if, with a green team, if this is appropriate in the house, in the in the church or not. And then environmental groups, it's interesting to build bridges with them, and then some of them can become speakers and they come. Sometimes they have campaigns, they can easily share them with you. And same thing, the church can offer sometimes some space for some of their meetings. I've seen many churches do that. Sometimes they're organizing a march, and then they need some space to organize, so it can be one of the spaces in the church. And you can judge in your context which of the environmental groups, local, national, international, you can work with. But the basic idea is not to have to invent everything. You can actually get inspired and take things from them. The green tips. The green tips, the ones from the Green Churches Network, always start with a passage from the Bible, and then there's a reflection that's made from that passage on an environmental theme. The Green Churches Network, I'll leave the link below. There are 100 of them, and of that 100, when you break it down into months, it's 8 per month. Considering there are 4 Sundays per month, well then that's good enough for 2 years. So you got a lot of green tips right there. They can be inserted in a parish bulletin, but they can also be projected on the screen. They can also be in the newsletter or on the church website. There are lots of options, and they're free and they're available. You just have to copy and paste. So hope that can be an inspiration for you. You should also use a calendar. Now, calendar during the season of creation is one example, from September 1st to October 4th. Then each day there's something you can do to reduce your environmental footprint or raise awareness or deepen your spirituality closer to creation and the Creator. So this is a really fun tool. You can download it and print it out on recycled paper, and then people keep this for a month and then refer to it, and it's a good conversation starter too. So all of these options, I hope, can inspire you to do something in your church. And what I mean to do something is that usually green teams will focus on the action, but then people don't know why we're doing this or that in the church. So we need these explanations. We need to understand why. So that's why we have to promote environmental education in our faith community. And then some others will only be in the spiritual stuff, but again, don't understand the issues we're facing, or they understand it just from a spiritual point of view and not enough, from a concrete, on the grounds point of view. So I hope this little teaching on environmental education was enlightening, and that you're ready to organize some of these activities in your own church.